Hi, this is the RFID Talks, and I'm here in São Paulo. It's 5:08 p.m., and I'm here with Claire Swedberg and Mark Roberti. Where you are, and what's the local time for you guys? Claire.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you again. I'm actually in Seattle, Washington area, and it is Pacific time 1:08.
And you, Mark.
I am in New York, and it's 4:08 here.
Oh, great. So today we are going to talk about love. No, about RFID. Sorry, I forgot.
Love is fine. We could do that.
Love and RFID. That's the point. And more people are
Aren't they the
loving
same
RFID.
thing?
No, they are not. They are.
They're not the same thing.
We can love RFID. That's the point. And what about the numbers? We have more and more people loving RFID and investing on it. Claire has some numbers to share with us. I know that some of the important things in the market nowadays for packaging is the use of RFID, and also growing because of the need of sustainability of DPP, Digital Product Passport in Europe. And all of these things are driving more and more people to the RFID, to the RFID market, and they must learn about it. And Mark has news on that. So let's start with Claire. Right, Claire? What about the numbers?
Yeah, there's lots to say about the numbers. Most recently, the RAIN Alliance teamed up with VDC Research and came up with new numbers for where we are going with RFID chips. And that's a pretty good barometer for the entire industry. So right now we're at about 40 billion chips per year, I believe, but I know we're going up to 115 billion chips sold a year if we meet the forecast that they're anticipating. So that means that we're going to be, I think, increasing 20% per year in order to reach those numbers, which is really significant. So RFID is on a bit of an upswing when it comes to volume of tag chips.
Couple of questions, Claire. So 115, 120 billion by when is that? And the other question I have is, are we talking is this study only about passive UHF RFID, or did it include NFC, versions of HF and LF as well?
Yeah, two really good questions, Mark. 2028 is the year that we're anticipating the 115 billion. So that's why it would take about 20% increase per year to reach that number. We're currently at 40 billion. And this is specifically UHF RFID, not NFC, not HF. And specifically, these are chips that go into tags as opposed to readers, which, have chips as well. But this is specifically that would indicate how many UHF RFID tags are going to be sold.
This is the number of the inlays, not just not tags, right?
Not tags, not tags. This is the chips that go in the tags.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the growth? You said it's 20% per year.
Yeah, that's what we're anticipating at this point. For a while, there was a surge the last couple of years where the question was, is this just catch up from the supply chain issues during the pandemic when we all remember the chip shortage? Now it's pretty obvious that this is being sustained, that it wasn't just trying to catch up. We're now just maintaining that increase year over year. And there are some other interesting points. They found that retail was down a little bit last year, and yet the sale of chips continued to rise. So what that would indicate is that it's more than just a retail apparel issue now. It's a lot more products, a lot of general merchandise, and moving obviously into healthcare, luggage, pharmaceuticals. So it goes on, and it's just becoming more diverse.
That's good.
When you say sales are down, do you mean the growth in retail was down, or was there actually a decline in shipments to retail applications?
Yeah, actually, I shouldn't have said retail. I should have said apparel. specifically
Mhm.
apparel.
Mhm.
So apparel and retail was down slightly. And I have to look back up and you guys can continue talking and I'll find you which quarter that was, but it was last year.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
these numbers are regarding the market for any kind of supplier or manufacturer for chip or just the rain business.
Okay, that's a good question too. This was a study done by the Rain Alliance, but for the first time, they actually were also drawing from non-Rain Alliance members. So that brought in yet more. The number went up slightly because of that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So this is very interesting. And do you have any information about sustainability on that or DPP? How this market is driving the use of RFID?
Yeah, sustainability has been really a growing focus, as I think we know now. And DPP is driving part of that. And I was wondering, Edson, you might have seen some of that with packaging as well. And I don't know if you want to comment a little bit on what you're seeing on the packaging side when it comes to trying to meet sustainability requirements with DPP.
Yeah, companies are okay. The most important thing is Europe, EU is pushing companies to use any kind of technology to take care of their products to understand how is the life cycle of them and to control the waste. So uh, the most important technology nowadays is RFID for them, for most of companies, because you can really track and trace all products. This is something that you cannot do with barcodes. This is not something that you can do easily with barcodes or QR codes or this kind of technologies. And RFID is the most important one. Some companies are thinking about using NFC as part of this. So this is not UHF, but NFC is another kind of RFID, and you can read by cell phone or a smartphone. And this is not very important right now because the price of the tags are higher than UHF, and UHF is kind of has needs less investment to make it go on. So companies are preferring to use UHF, and the sustainability is something that's growing in China too. So companies in China are using RFID to track and trace their products. This is something that I got information from IPIA, AIPIA, this week in an interview with If Ferranti, and he told me that companies are investing, having huge investments in RFID for the next years. This is something very interesting, but we don't have numbers like you have, Claire. This is very interesting. And to introduce Mark in this momentum, Mark, this is you are changing from the RFID strategies to a new job. Is that right, or I'm wrong?
Well, it's partly right. I'm not. I still run RFID Strategies, which is the consulting firm that I started after I left RFID Journal. But I've been spending more and more of my time working on the RFID Professional Institute, which is a body that was set up in 2012 to create and offer certification exams that are vendor neutral and are standardized so that companies hiring people that have been certified know that those people have some base knowledge about RFID. So the Institute kind of limped along. We created 2 certifications, an RFID associate certificate and then a more advanced professional certificate. And we created the questions and we tested them, and we ran beta tests of to make sure the questions were good. We threw out bad questions. Went through a whole process, which was based on what CompTIA and other certification bodies do. It went sort of dormant in around 2020. So a couple of people retired that were involved in the institute. Other people were, busy with their jobs and couldn't devote any time to it. And so at that point, there was a vote taken by the board to shut down the institute. And I proposed to the board that instead of shutting it down, that they transfer the assets to me personally, so that at some point I might be able to reestablish or devote more time and relaunch the institute. So I rebuilt the website in 2022. Didn't do too much with it, but the last year or so, I've been working to update the exams, and so I've updated the associate exam, and I also created a study guide. So we never had a way of someone learning about RFID and then taking the exam. You basically had to learn on your own. And RFID for You offers a very good certification course. They do it at RFID Journal Live every year, have done since like 2012, 2013. And they do it sometimes at their own facilities in California. But if you're in India or you're in Japan or you're in Brazil, you have no way of taking that course. So I wanted to create online educational materials that people could download and study and then take the exam and get certified and then be able to put that on their resume. So that's what I've been working on. We published this study exam about a month ago, the first one. And folks are downloading it, some are, and hopefully we get the word out there, and folks who want to get jobs in the RFID industry, which, as we've been talking about, has been growing. There's opportunity there for jobs, whether you're an engineer or a salesperson or an implementer of the technology. There are opportunities. So this is a way to get certified and then show that you have those skills and that knowledge.
Yeah, I'm wondering too, Mark, and is this something that you could take and get certified if you were maybe would this be for people who just want to use RFID and develop it for their own purposes in their company, or would they maybe want to be innovators that want to offer RFID solutions, or are they just looking for in RFID?
So it's both. What my hope is that if you're a young person in an engineering course, there is no RFID degree. You can't get an engineering RFID engineer degree or anything like that. So if you're an electrical engineer and you're studying RFID in one or two courses, or you work at the labs that have been established at Auburn and Parma and other universities around the world, and you get interested in this and you maybe want to get a job, this is a way to fill out your knowledge. So you've got some knowledge that you got in that course, but they probably didn't teach you everything. You might not have taught you about LF or HF, or they might not have taught you about numbering schemes and lots of things that are part of RFID. And this is a way for them to do it and then go into either an engineering job at a company like a Zebra or an Avery or an Impinj or any other of the RFID companies, or get a job with an end user company that wants to deploy a solution. So if you're trying to build out an RFID team, who do you hire? Right now, you don't. You basically take someone internally who knows nothing about RFID, and you hopefully get them educated and say, hey, go do RFID. So it's really aimed at both. And and the study guides are written in a way that you can use them to take the exams, but they're also written in a way that you can use them to understand the technology and its value to your company, even if you don't want to take the exam, even if you don't care about the exam. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I think has always been a problem in our industry is there is very little comprehensive education. There are people who know a lot about passive UHF who may know nothing about HF and LF. There are people who know HF really well and may know nothing about UHF or LF. So, it's important, I think, for people to have a broad understanding of the technologies and what they do and how they're different. Active is another flavor of RFID. So you may be an expert in active, but if you're a solution, if you're a systems integrator and you're talking to a manufacturer and they've got an issue and RFID could solve it, it's okay, but which type of RFID? If you know UHF, you try to shoehorn UHF into it. If you know HF or active, you try to, make it an active solution, even though those might not be the best options. But if you know them all, then you simply say, this is the best option. We're going to go with this one because we can do all of them. And there are integrators that, are very good and do that, but there's a lot of integrators who only know one type of RFID. And if you go to them, that's what you're going to get, whether it's the right one or not. And so I'm hoping that we can broaden the education and deepen the education so that people can do a better job of serving the end user, the end user who wants to deploy the solution.
Mm.
And Mark, I see from the beginning when I started working with RFID in RFID Journal that most of people that are interested in RFID are not really the guys from IT. Most of people are business or marketing, are guys from logistics, but I really believe that people from the IT departments should take care of this, or even more, be more involved on this. And they are still not involved on this because RF is something that's not their business. This is part of my question. And the second part is how many exams exist in the market?
So I'll take the second one first. So there are two exams, the associate exam. The associate exam is basically, the way I think of it, is facts about RFID. Do you know the facts about RFID? Do you know what ISO standard is used by most passive UHF systems? Do you know the read range of an HF tag? Those are facts about RFID that are important, right? You need to have a lot of knowledge of facts. The facts also include, what are the common applications of LF or of HF or of active? Those are all, sort of fact-based knowledge that you need to have, fundamental knowledge you need to have to work in this industry and to understand RFID. The professional exam is a step beyond that, and it goes into how do you apply RFID, how do you develop a business case, how do you write application requirements and apply a specific type of technology to a specific problem. So it goes into, the exam covers, and the study guide will cover, how do you choose between passive and active, and or a real-time location system versus a regular passive active system. And how do you, if you pick a passive system, how do you choose between LF, HF, and UHF? What are the factors that make one of those choices better than the other two? So that's, a deeper exam. In the future, I would like to go even further and say we're going to have an RTLS specific exam, really in depth about RTLS, really in depth about HF and NFC, really in depth about UHF. So we would have all of these separate exams. So if you wanted to hire somebody, hey, I need an expert in active, then, hey, I'm certified. Here it is. So that's, that's the goal. Those three don't exist yet. It's the associate and the professional exam. And now I've forgotten the first part of your question.
The first part of the question was how to involve IT people in RFID business.
Right. So the thing is, as I said, the study guide is written so that if you were a business, you could read this and use it as a roadmap to a deployment. And it talks about the best practices, and it talks about the best practices for creating a committee to run your RFID project and how you do that and who should be on that. And I recommend, and best practices, I think, recommend that you don't hire an IT person or a technology person to run the whole show, but you need to have their input. They need to be involved, right? And one of the sections in the professional exam is about data formats. So, what data is going to be on the tag? What is the format of the data on the tag? How do you get that data from the tag into the reader? And then, you buy the reader is going to capture that data from the tag, but then it's going to give you something like, what format is that? What format do you need that in? What translation do you need to do in order to get it into your system and use it? What data do you need? So, one of the things that, we never talk about in RFID is the fact that when you read a tag, you get a lot more information than a serial number, or more information than a serial number and user data that you stored on it. You get when the tag was read, where was it read, right? You may get which way was it moving? Was it going in or out of the doorway? You get timestamp, date, time, location. All of this information is useful, right? And I think if you're an end user and you understand that this is different from a barcode where you got a ping that you read a barcode. You get a lot of information around the RFID tag. So how do you use that information to your benefit? And if companies understand all of this data that's going to come out of this system, they can start to say, well, wow, I can do some things I didn't realize that RFID could do, because I just thought I was getting a serial number, and then, that's look that up in the database and find out what it is. No, you can have a temperature sensor on that thing. It's hot, it's cold, it's spoiled. We need to throw it away. So, these are the things that I'm trying to bring to the market, to have this education so that companies can say to themselves, okay, now I see why I need IT, because I've got all this data. And some of it I probably don't want, so we can ignore. But I need the IT guys to understand what the formats are, what data is going to come at them, and then how are we going to use that? How are we going to get that into the back end system? And this is a critical part of it. I mean, the tag itself and the tag read, that's the basics, but it's everything that comes after that that's really important. What do we do with that data? How do we turn that tag read into useful information that will drive a benefit for our business?
Mm-hmm. Mm. ERP integration.
And there are different strategies for integration. And in the professional guide, we're going to go into, what are your options for taking that data from the reader and using it. Is it, do you buy a standalone RFID system and use that? Do you use an RFID system that is linked to your ERP system? So capture some data, use it, and then transfer it to the back end? Or do you just send it directly to the back end? And what are the benefits of each of those options? So, these are things most people don't talk about, most people in the industry don't talk about, and most end users aren't aware of until they get sort of deeper into it, and then their solution provider says, here's how we do it, and then you go, okay, that's how we'll do it. But there may be a better way to do it. So my hope would be, and this is just a hope, not an expectation, that companies would invest in learning and say, oh, I see, we have 3 or 4 options for integration. Let's think about what we think the pros and cons are of each, and then let's talk to our systems integrator and see what they think the pros and cons are of each, and then let's agree on the best solution. That's not how it works most of the time today. Most of the time is, this is the way we do it. Okay, we'll do it your way.
Mm. And Claire, you said you had a conversation or an interview today with someone very interested in learning about RFID, right?
Yeah, I was mentioning that I had an interview this morning with probably the youngest, without a doubt, the youngest source I've had in the RFID industry, because he just I guess last week graduated from high school. But his team has, over the last 2 years, developed an RFID solution. And now the new members of their company are still in high school. So this is our age group. And it's super exciting actually to talk to some of these guys, because they're very excited about the technology. They actually start with an issue, a problem they're trying to solve. They stumble on to RFID. And when I ask this young 18-year-old man who is going into mechanical engineering in college next year, how did you learn to do this? Because he starts talking at a pretty sophisticated level about some of the work that they've done with the technology. And he said, I looked it all up online, which maybe shouldn't surprise us, because that's honestly how people learn a lot of the things that they know. And a lot of expertise comes from the internet, for sure. But, it's interesting to see that there is a new generation. We want to encourage the new generation to come in. They're already very technically savvy, and they're interested, and they're bringing new use cases too, that his use case is completely different than anything that we typically write about. And it's a different approach. And maybe RFID isn't just identifying, it's also creating a communication that is, significant. If this object comes in this range, I want the following thing to happen. To me, this is exciting. It's the next generation. We want to see that. We want to encourage that. And education has been the one area where I feel like maybe that's been lacking, and also easy accessibility to that education, because you can go get a 4-year degree at some of the schools we've been talking about. Cal Poly's got a good program in Auburn and Parma. But if you just want to start an RFID solution based on a problem that your company or the public is facing, how do you quickly get educated? And I think that's interesting that, Mark, this kind of thing, the Institute might be one avenue for young innovators. What do you think?
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, I certainly understand that, there's a lot of information on the internet. I worked at RFID Journal for 20 years, and I put a lot of great...
Some of it's yours.
Yeah, some of it's mine out there, and I think that that's great. And what I'm doing is absolutely not a substitute for that. Those, all those great stories that you've written over these many years, that's an invaluable resource out there. But if you are, let's say, for example, you work at a mid-sized manufacturing company. My son is a mechanical engineer. He got a job at I won't name the company, but they make office furniture, manufacture office furniture. Pretty large company, sales offices all over the world. And if they wanted to deploy RFID, and he's kind of brought it up to them once or twice, then they would probably, the CEO or the chief operating officer would probably pick somebody and say, we'd like you to investigate. That person who's making, let's say, $200,000 a year has to spend hours and hours and hours going on the internet, finding information which, frankly, often is contradictory with each other. You find one person who says this, and someone else will say, no, that's not right, and what do you believe? And it's not organized. So what I tried to do is take 20 years of knowledge that I gained from talking to everybody in the industry. And I literally talked to everyone from, Dr. Hardgrave at Auburn and Justin, the guys at the Parma lab, the end users, the solution providers, the systems integrators, everybody. I've been to tag manufacturing facilities. I've been, I mean, literally, 20 years of knowledge, 365 days a year, I was learning about RFID, and I can organize that information in a way that is easy to digest, easy to understand, and so you could shortcut the research by hundreds of hours by reading one document as opposed to surfing lots of websites and trying to find information and try to understand it. So that's kind of what my goal is. And the next step that I would like to do is I would like to turn this into a video course so that, people could sit down at their computer, watch a video of, each chapter, or even break it up even shorter than, parts of chapters. And so, for example, performance of HF, how do HF tags work, and what's their performance characteristics, and explain that, and then ask a few questions. If you're interested in the certification, we'd give you a few test questions to test what you just learned on the video, and then you'd go on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And that, to me, would be way better than spending hundreds of hours searching the internet. I mean, I'm doing it now to a certain degree. I have a question in my mind about how does this work, or how does that work, or what's the actual format of that, and I'll spend hours and hours just to answer a single question. And often I wind up going to an expert that I know, and I say, I read this and I read that, and they contradict each other. What's the truth here? And get the experts, the right answer. And so I'm doing all that research for people and have done it over 20 years. So I think this would be a lot easier than now, maybe if you're a high school student, you might not want to pay for a video course, but if you're a business person and you're you have an idea for an innovation, you should be willing to invest a couple $100 to learn about RFID.
And are you going to offer the exam for people who are learning RFID outside of the institute, all over the world, for instance?
Anywhere in the world, you could take the exam now. You could, right now the study guide is only in English. But one potential that I'm going to explore is once we produce the videos, we can use AI potentially, if it's good enough, to translate them into different languages. So then, we have the potential of offering the exam in English or in Japanese or in Spanish or Portuguese. And I think that would be a good thing too. Obviously, some of this depends on the demand. If there's demand, and then it's worth doing. If nobody's interested, obviously it's not worth doing.
Yeah, because I know lots of companies that are starting their own education program to let people understand better how to implement technology and RFID, and this kind of companies probably will need to certificate their students. Even if they are offering. Here in Brazil, I know a company that has a very good agreement with education platform in the country, so they will start in a couple of years to have their own certificate. But I believe that an international certificate would be interesting for them, and have probably some kind of business with the institute and you, and how can companies do that with you?
Well, I would suggest you have them reach out to me, and we can come to an agreement where they could translate the exam into Portuguese, and we can host it on our test engine, or we could find another test engine to host it. So the way the certification works is you take it online, but we use a company called testinvite. Testinvite.com, and you log on. We send you a unique link. You log on, and it controls your browser and controls your computer, so you can't open any other browser windows or any other applications. So you can't have a window over here with Google and start searching for the answers and then answer the questions. And when you finish the exam, you have to take it in one sitting, 90 minutes. When you're done, that's your score, and they calculate it. It's calculated automatically, and then you either pass or fail. So we could do that in Portuguese, or if they have their own test engine, or there's one in Brazil that people use, then they could host it there. But I'm interested in making this as available as possible so that we can do more education and more certification, and we can build this industry. Because, the reality is, if every single retailer tomorrow decided to deploy RFID, we couldn't do it. There's not enough people available who know how to deploy a solution, to put the stuff in and set it up and configure it and make it work. We need to, as the industry grows, we need to grow the resource base, the human resources that are needed to make this industry thrive. And that's what the Institute was founded for, by a bunch of professionals, 12 years ago. And that's what I'm trying to do today still. So this is not a big for-profit venture. It is a for-profit company at the moment, but that's simply because it's a lot of rigmarole to make a nonprofit and file income tax as a nonprofit and all that. So I didn't want to do all that. But I'm not doing this because I expect to make a lot of money. I've invested a lot of my own money in creating the study guide, and in having a professional designer design it, having editors edit it, and so on. So I'm hoping to grow the industry and to do the education that's needed. And whether it works or not, we'll see.
That's good. And Claire, do you believe AI can do everything like AI can do here for you?
Yes. Hey, Copilot, how do you use RFID? What's the difference between UHF and HF? It'll get you partway there, but not that.
It won't get you very far. So one of the ideas I had when I started this project was AI could make it a lot easier. And that turned out to be completely untrue. So I have a subscription to ChatGPT 4, and I asked it to explain, how UHF, how HF tags how they couple electromagnetically, and it gave me a UHF backscatter explanation. So completely wrong, everything about it. So it's not there yet. But maybe the translation is getting good enough that but even then, I think with RFID, it's so technical and so specific, will you be able to translate something? It might do a good job of translating conversational Chinese into English or English into Chinese, but will it be able to explain electromagnetic coupling in Cantonese or in Chinese? I don't know.
Yeah, I tried once with ChatGPT to prepare a presentation with ChatGPT about the Internet of Packaging, and you know what? ChatGPT went to my website and brought. Yeah, I think I'm one of the only ones that are talking about this theme in this technology. So it went there and brought me my own texts. It was perfect for me, my own presentation.
It's a staggering experience when you go to look for better information on a topic and you find out that you're the source.
Yeah,
it's very unsettling.
Yeah, and I'm not a musician, but I tried another day something called Suno. You know that? SUNO, Suno. And I went there and I started writing something, and it just made music with that and played the music to me. So I said, I'm a musician now. So, this is stupid, because I tried the second time and the music was almost the same. So,
Yeah.
I believe some things in AI are just fake for a while, but I believe it will grow up fast and it will be something very important in a few years. In
Yeah,
few years.
definitely. But like everything, there's hype at the beginning. I went to in I think it was 2020 or 2021. I went to NRF, and every booth had AI. And that every booth doesn't have AI, right? I mean, they're using algorithms and saying, okay, if you like this, then you might like that or whatever. But that's not AI. That's just an algorithm. So there's a lot of hype involved, and now everybody and their uncle. I mean, I use some of these video sites to develop the videos for the institute, and every video site is, oh, we have AI, we have AI, we have AI. It's mostly just hype at this point. A lot of it. I mean, what ChatGPT is doing, and what Microsoft and Gemini with Google and stuff. Sure, important stuff, but it still needs a lot of time to develop and improve.
And Claire, are you seeing more AI in RFID nowadays? How is it going on or growing in your coverage?
I think that what Mark was describing from NRF a couple years ago is, even more so today. The actual reference to AI is pretty easy to just toss around. You can just describe something as AI, when it doesn't necessarily meet that definition. But we can't ignore that AI is happening, and it's not just creeping; it's kind of storming into our lives. Just day-to-day experiences. So yes, it's happening in RFID, and there's nobody who isn't saying, okay, I'm collecting all this data. It's going to be really helpful to figure out AI now rather than later. And yeah, absolutely. I'd almost never interview anybody anymore who doesn't bring up AI. Yeah.
Okay, guys, do you believe we got everything in our conversation today?
Yeah.
Except for love. We'll save that one for the next episode.
I forgot about love. And what about you, Mark? You said something about love at the beginning, and then you forgot to.
Love it. RFID is love. I mean, they're the same. They're the same.
RL.
RLOVE.
RLOVE.
Okay. Guys, it was very nice to see you again, to talk to you, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Okay. Thanks,
Yep,
Ed.
I'm looking forward to it.
Appreciate you hosting this.